Genius houses you won't believe actually exist. One day, 14-year-old Andre Canto had an argument with his parents. Instead of running away, he decided to build his own house. He used a pickaxe and carved out an underground home. He eventually used a pulley system to remove the rocks. After 1 year, the house was built and had many rooms, Wi-Fi, and a music system too. In 2018, many Florida houses were destroyed by Hurricane Michael. That was except for one house. The Hurricane House was designed to withstand any hurricane. Despite the hurricane's 255-mile-per-hour winds, it stayed standing. Many neighbors made fun of the guys who built this house. But when their houses were destroyed and the Hurricane House stayed standing, they weren't laughing anymore. At the age of 65, Teranobu Fujimori decided to build his dream treehouse. The tiny house is built on top of 2 trees. People called this homeowner crazy, but he had the last laugh. In 2016, Brazoria, Texas had lots of floods. Everyone had to evacuate except one man named Randy Wagner. He bought a gigantic rubber tube named an aquadam. He unraveled this around his house and filled it up. All of his neighbors laughed at him and said, "That will never work and your house will flood." But Randy ignored his neighbors. Days later, the entire town flooded and everyone had to evacuate except Randy. Randy's house was like a tiny island seen from above. Randy's house was totally fine, but all of his neighbors who laughed at him had to pay millions of dollars in repairs. Zombie-proof houses you have to see. The Concrete Ark is a house found in Poland. It is a gigantic concrete box that can be fully sealed up. It's hard to even see how to get into this house. The only way to get in is by using a secret drawbridge. This underwater fortress can be found on the Black Sea in Russia. The house actually has windows, meaning that you can see underwater from inside the house. This is like a supervillain's lair. Just Enough Room Island is a tiny island located in New York. It's impossible to get to by anything other than boat. The Desert House is found in California, USA. It really blends in with the desert, making it hard to see. The house was under construction for 20 years and no one even knew except the owners. It can't be accessed by normal roads, so you need to learn every single back route to get to this house. People called this homeowner crazy, but she had the last laugh. In 2017, lots of wildfires occurred in Kansas, USA. Many people cut their losses and evacuated their homes. But one woman named Danielle Tajman had a different idea. She turned on her sprinklers just in case this would help stop the fire. Many of her friends and neighbors laughed and said that will never work and your house will burn down. Later on, Danielle did evacuate. But when she was in a safe place, she turned on the news and saw her own house. Everything around it had been burned, but the sprinklers saved her home. It turns out Danielle's idea worked after all, and everyone who made fun of her idea had to eat their words. Kim Jong-un's house has been found on Google Maps. A Google Maps user has found the North Korean leader's house. It is 70,000 square feet. It is complete with its own basketball court, theme park, and water park. In the water, there are harbor protection blocks. This means no one can drive a boat up to Kim's house. There's also a theater and even a shooting range too. The house is made up of 4 palaces and 4 other buildings. Many of these details have been confirmed by Dennis Rodman. He has visited and stayed at Kim's house over 8 times. Useless mega projects that wasted billions. Forest City in Malaysia was supposed to be a green energy smart city. All of the buildings were far too expensive and Malaysians could not afford them. Over $100 billion has been spent on the project. It was made for 700,000 people, but less than 500 people actually live there. Naypyidaw is the new capital city of Myanmar. The government began building it in secret in 2005. It has highways, houses, and even an airport. The only thing missing is the people. It is a ghost town despite being a massive capital city. $4 billion was spent on the city, but no one lives in it. Interstate H3 is a massive highway in Hawaii. It cost a massive $1.3 billion. Almost no one drives on it, and many natives believe it's cursed. Scary houses you should never go inside. The Myrtles Plantation is found in Kansas, USA. It is said to be haunted by more than 10 spirits, the most famous being a ghost named Chloe. The last owner was named William Winter, and he mysteriously passed away inside the house. Film crews have tried to make documentaries about this house, but when they get there, their cameras glitch out and won't work. Villa de Vecchi is the most haunted house in Italy. It used to be owned by Count de Vecchi before his entire family mysteriously vanished in the house. Today the house is deserted, but locals say they can hear the house's piano playing by itself every night. Also, many occultists like Aleister Crowley have gone here and done rituals. The Monte Cristo homestead is said to be the most haunted house in Australia. Built in 1885, over 12 people have passed away in this house. It's said that their spirits still haunt this house today. The most stubborn homeowners ever. In 2012, all of the occupants of a street in Wengling, China were asked to move. That's because they wanted to build a new highway. But one man named Liu Baojin refused, and that's why his home now sits in the middle of a highway. In 2006, Edith Macefield turned down millions of dollars to sell her house. She would never sell and remained there, keeping her 100-year-old house. And her house is actually the inspiration for the movie Up. In 2015, one house got in the way of a new development in China, but the owner refused to sell, so that's why their house is in the middle of a pavement. In 2004, one Japanese homeowner accepted no amount of money to move. They were building a gigantic mall, but they wouldn't move, so they simply built them all around the house. It's not yet been built, so right now they have to live on a gigantic dirt hill. Most expensive construction mistakes ever. The walkie-talkie building in London was built for $1.8 billion. But there was a big problem. The glass was curved. This reflected the sun's heat onto the sidewalk below. This melted cars, caused the sidewalk to crack, and it got so hot one reporter even fried an egg on the sidewalk. The SEG Plaza in Shanghai is a $100 million building, but earlier this week it began shaking. The entire building was evacuated and it's been closed ever since. A very expensive investigation will now be launched to find out what made it shake. Jeddah Tower was supposed to be the tallest building in the world. Located in Saudi Arabia, it was supposed to be the world's first 1-kilometer high building. Billions have been spent on the project, which was supposed to be finished in 2018. But after many corruption scandals, the building has been paused. Celebrity homes no one wants to buy. The rapper 50 Cent has a massive 50,000 square foot home in Connecticut. He tried to sell it in 2015 for $18.5 million, but it's still not sold even though he's dropped the price all the way down to $5.9 million. The house has 21 bedrooms and 25 bathrooms, but the house is massive and in the middle of nowhere. This means it's simply not practical for most people. President Trump has what's known as the St. Martin Chateau. It was partially damaged during a hurricane. Located on the island of St. Martin, it was listed for $28 million. But even though he's dropped the price by $11 million, it still has not sold. Some people also don't want to live in it as they don't like his politics. The basketball star Michael Jordan is trying to sell his house in Illinois. It was on the market for $29 million. But after 8 years, it's still on the market despite 5 price drops. It's got a workout room, home theater, and even a basketball court.